Finals between the Las Vegas Aces and the Seattle Storm. And we're very glad that you're joining us here on Twitter and or YouTube. And we know that there's nothing else happening in the world right now that is requiring your attention, just us talking about WNBA basketball. So if you're hanging out with us, we really, really appreciate your support, and make sure to follow probably the Twitter that you're looking at right now at HerHoopStats. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabe_Ibrahim. And you can follow Calvin Wetzel at CWetzel31 on Twitter. How you doing, man?
Good. It's good to be with you. I'm pumped for the finals. It's a Friday. It's October now. Finals basketball on both sides. I know your Heat. I figure we usually wait like 17 minutes. Let's just get right into it. 1 minute in. Let's just bring up the Heat. Heat play a finals game.
Do we have
tonight.
to today?
Yeah. This is the first day Gabe doesn't want us to bring up the Heat, so I thought I'd throw him in there. But both finals games tonight, not overlapping. It's going to be a great night and a great week of basketball.
Yeah, the Heat are they kind of got. Hopefully, this game one of the WNBA Finals will be better than game one of the NBA Finals, and hopefully there are no injuries as well, like happened in the NBA. But we're here to talk W. We're here to talk W because we have a great matchup, the matchup that we all wanted. I don't know if we all wanted, but the matchup that the neutral fan, I would say, wanted the most was Aces Storm in the finals. These two teams have been the best two teams all season long. No shade to anybody else because there's a lot of great teams this year, but these two have kind of pushed themselves over the rest, and obviously they're the 1 and 2 seed, so that makes sense. The Seattle Storm got here by sweeping up the Minnesota Lynx in a really impressive series, pretty eye-opening. They just kind of outclassed Minnesota in that series. And then the Aces were in a bar fight with the Connecticut Sun for 5 games. And the last game, it was gross. It was gritty. It was brutal. Bill Laimbeer, Kurt Miller basketball. Like that was the game that I think both those coaches love to be in, and their teams love to be in. And the Aces pulled out 66-63. So, Calvin, let's start with that game 5 because we haven't had a chance to talk about it, and then we'll get into previewing the Aces Storm series because I think there's a lot in this game 5 that we can take away into this next series. But what to you stood out from the Aces winning that game against the Sun?
I mean, number 1, Angel, and number 2,
Angel, yes.
Grit. I mean, they were down, I think 16 was it in the first half?
Yeah, they were.
And I don't know if we've necessarily seen that type of grit, like I said, stick-to-itiveness from the Aces, throughout this series. If that's something I obviously, if you would have told me one team got down 16, going into the game and was going to come back, I would have told you it's going to be the Connecticut Sun. That's something I would have expected from them. But that was a good sign. I wrote the Aces off when they were down 16. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. I'll be honest. I thought it was over.
Hey, they love
that. Yeah, I mean, now they can do their own little disrespect campaign. Put something.
We need a snappy acronym.
Yeah, I don't know what ends in LV, but anyway, that is. I think that's great momentum. Going into a matchup against. I mean, that was a 7 seed. That was not your ordinary 7 seed, but it was a 7 seed. This is a historically good defensive team. They're not the 1 seed, but they might as well be in the Seattle Storm. They're the favorite in I think everyone's mind. And the Aces are going to need some kind of confidence coming off of that last 2 or 3 quarters of Game 5. If they want to beat the Storm.
I wonder. I haven't seen many like full scale prediction things like ESPN does at the beginning of the season. I haven't seen a ton of those. Maybe that's just because we've been busy today with other news. But I think you're probably right. I think most people would favor the Seattle Storm, but I think that last series to me for the Aces makes it really, really hard to write them off. I'm not saying anyone's writing them off, but I think it makes it really hard to not believe in this team to get wins. Yes, they're down Dearica Hamby. That's a huge loss for this team. But what you saw in that Game 5, and I think what you're going to see in this series, is a bunch of other players stepping up. Kayla McBride played extremely well on the defensive end all series long for the Aces against the Sun. And I don't think particularly myself, I did not talk about that enough because she was playing tremendous defense on DeWanna Bonner, even though she was kind of struggling on offense, and we think about her as an offensive player, but really where she's brought it this season has been on defense. I'd say the same thing for Danielle Robinson. She really brought it on defensive end, and she shot terribly in game 5, 2 of 11, 7 points, but she got 10 rebounds, 2 steals, right? Like those things in a big game matter a ton. When you're not shooting and you can figure out ways to contribute and win games, you're still going to be a big part of it. However, the other thing that I saw in game 5 that is going to play against the Aces is their bench has been rough. Jackie Young, she was non-existent in the last series, and I understand why. Like, that's a really tough matchup against Brianne January and Jasmine Thomas, and she ran into some excellent defenders, including DeWanna Bonner that she had to play against often. But she was not crisp on either end of the floor, and Bill Laimbeer felt that he couldn't trust her, so she only played 9 minutes. Emma Cannon, she's the only front court person on this roster that's going to play minutes because Dearica Hamby's out. So she had to give them some minutes, and I don't think she wasn't like glaringly awful, but she was -15 in her 8 minutes, and the team won by 3 points, which is not good. Plus minus is not everything, but that's not good. And Sugar Rogers also hasn't given them much on either end of the floor. So Calvin, I think my question from that aspect is, do you think that the Aces bench can give a little bit more in this series? And if they don't, can this team survive that?
I think Jackie Young can give a little bit more. I don't know if the bench as a whole can give a little bit more. I mean, it's interesting because you're talking about a historic regular season bench. They set all sorts of basically, whatever the stat is, they set a bench record for it, right? Which comes with an asterisk because Bill Laimbeer brought like 3 of his best 5 players off the bench. And they had Danielle Robinson, Dearica Hamby, Jackie Young played the 3 most bench minutes in the league. So sure. Obviously they're going to have a lot of production. Now what you have is Dearica Hamby, hurt. Danielle Robinson in the starting lineup, and Lindsey Allen has all but disappeared from the rotation.
Yes.
Now those 3 big bench players, you're down to only one of them actually coming off the bench, and she hasn't produced very well in Jackie Young. So you're really down, I would say 2.5 of those 3 bench players. You're not, Danielle Robinson's playing great, but with her in the starting lineup now, you don't have someone to come in and, play with that second unit. There is no second unit at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, we're just like last series, we're going to have to see A'ja Wilson play 40 minutes in maybe every game in this series. You're going to have to see Angel play a lot more than what she did in the regular season. And the first couple games of that Connecticut Sun series, she was still playing, around 20 minutes a game. We're going to have to see her closer to 30. And Jackie Young is going to have to step up off the bench because this, like I said, this Storm team, you're going to have to get contributions from everyone if you're going to beat this Storm team. So they're going to need something from Jackie Young as well.
Yeah, no, I think Jackie's huge. I think she should do better in this series because Sue Bird and Jewel Lloyd are fantastic basketball players. However, their strengths are not on the defensive end. I think with Jackie Young's size and the way she scores will work actually better against Seattle than it does against Connecticut. So I agree. I think Jackie's going to be huge. And I just noticed that we got a few more people watching us, so we want to welcome you into the Her Hoop Stats pregame show. I'm Gabe Ibrahim alongside Calvin Wetzel, Shay Jennings in the background, making the clickety clicks, the clackety clacks to make us look good. All the things you see on the screen are all Shay. We're just talking. It's an extremely easy job for us. She's our MVP. Speaking of MVPs, we have 2 MVPs in the. Well, I think did Sue ever win an MVP? I should look that up next time I stop talking. But we have 2 MVPs in this series. And I think 2. I'm talking about 2020 MVPs. There is an easy case for A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart to win the MVP. I think A'ja got it and deserved it because of how consistent and her team getting the number 1 seed. I think those things are huge. But we have 2 of them. I'm really interested to see who wins that matchup. Let's move over to Seattle. We've talked a lot about Vegas. What can Breanna Stewart do against this Vegas team? Do you think she has a favorable matchup if she's going up against A'ja on defense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she wasn't that efficient in that last series overall. We're used to Breanna Stewart, flirting with 40, 50, 90. And she started out the first 2 games shooting in the 30s. Breanna Stewart. But yeah, I think we're going to see her, not what she can do is, to answer your question, is knock down shots. And if she knocks down shots and pulls Asia away from the rim, we're not going to see any of those 7-block historic performances from Asia, like what we did in, I think it was a game 1. I can't remember what game that was. The Asia had 7 blocks. But we're not going to see that if Asia gets pulled away from the rim. And the other thing is that Brianna Stewart can really, really muck things up on defense too. The Storm are so much of a different defensive team than the Sun. They're 2 of the best defensive teams in the league, but the Sun are, back to your point about Jackie Young and why she struggled so much is because the Sun play defense and offense really by just bullying you. They just, Angel McCaughtry called it football, right? She said they're playing football, so we're going to have to play football also. And the Storm are incredible defensively. They don't play football though. So that might be an advantage for Jackie Young. But in other aspects, Brianna Stewart's going to make it very difficult with her length, both on the perimeter and around the rim. And how difficult she makes it on ball screens in particular. I think she's going to make it really tough, for the Aces to run their stuff. And they're going to have another grinded out series where, they might score in the 60s a couple games, which they didn't do all regular season. But then they did 2 of the first 3 games against the Sun. We might see that again.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, I think it's going to be a little bit more offensive. Certainly than the last game of the last series where the teams didn't score for like 6 minutes in the fourth quarter. And it was disgusting. It was awesome. And I loved it. And I know Bill Laimbeer was saying, man, I wish I was playing in this game because that's a Bill Laimbeer game. But I think this series is going to be much more flowing, much more offensive. And hey, if you guys are watching, toss us a question in the comments and we'd love to answer it. So I think, as I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit more scoring. It's going to be a little bit more up pace. I think I was reading Ben Dahl's the preview on his Substack floor game.substack.com. It's really good, really in depth. It's a little bit wonkier than what we can get into here, but I think one of the keys is going to be who can get out and run more, and then who's going to do well on the glass. And I'll take that second part first, and then I'll toss it to you to talk about the teams can get out in transition. I think on the glass, it's going to be really important for Vegas to just dominate that matchup because Seattle is 8th in defensive rebounding percentage this season. And Vegas is not the best offensive rebounding team. They finished 6th in offensive rebounding this season, but they were able to get enough offensive rebounds in that Connecticut series to make it uncomfortable and make Connecticut really, really focus in on boxing out. And it kind of kept them from getting out too much in transition. So if Las Vegas can get some offensive rebounds without sacrificing getting back on defense, that'll really, really help their defense and their offense. Obviously, offensive rebounds lead to second chance opportunities. Second chance opportunities are typically very easy to score on. So I think that'll be a massive part of this series. And I also want to see how much Carolyn Swords can help in that aspect. Because I think when you look at this matchup, we've been saying all season that, Carolyn Swords probably shouldn't play as many minutes as she should. But the executive of the year really did amazing in that last game against Connecticut. And she provided good defense. She was not a liability on the defensive end. Offensively, she's limited, but she was still getting rebounds, still doing stuff that helped.
She had 10 rebounds, to your point.
Yeah. And a few of those were offensive. So I think if she can get some offensive boards, the minutes that she's definitely going to play, because I think thinking that she's not going to play minutes is a fool's errand at this point in the season. Bill Laimbeer is going to play her. He said that he's going to probably go smaller at some points in this season, some point in the series, but she's going to play and she can get offensive rebounds. That'll be huge for her minutes. As my buddy my buddy Alex says, I'm a glutton for punishment by doing the show as the Heat are going to probably lose after this game. But what I wanted to toss it to you for is, in transition, which one of these teams has the advantage, and how are they going to get out in transition?
Well, you brought up rebounding. The team that's going to have the advantage in transition is going to be the team that rebounds, because that's what starts transition. Is a live ball stop, which you can talk about turnovers, but most live ball stops are rebounds. Right. And that's where it's going to be interesting. You know, you talk about Carolyn Swords. We talked off air about whether the Aces will play small a little bit. You know, I think a lot of us would like to see it. But, you know, Bill Lambier is Bill Lambier. So we may or may not see it. You know, we would have loved to see Angel at the 4. And instead we got Emma Cannon, which is you know, fine. Due respect to Emma Cannon. But Angel at the 4, you know, that might be why Bill's doing that, because Angel at the 4 would create a lot of mismatches and create some interesting, you know, opportunities on offense. But it would also be a disadvantage, you know, on both sides on the glass. So Carolyn Swords is 6'6". She does have size, obviously, as she's going to be the biggest player on the court. What I would like to see her do, though, back to the offensive rebounding side of the ball, is, and this is not just Carolyn Swords. This is, I can get a soapbox on this all day, but I'll try not to talk for too long about this because, you know, don't get me going. But when players get offensive rebounds, you know what they don't do enough is kick out the ball, because in Carolyn Swords, to me, kind of exemplifies it. I would love to see, she's taller than everyone. So in theory, she has an open look when she gets the offensive rebound, but she doesn't actually usually have an open look. And we've seen her miss a lot of putbacks. Find Kayla McBride, you know, find Jackie Young for a 15-footer. Find Asia Wilson. She can knock down that 50-footer. Find someone, kick it out. That's what I would like to see from Carolyn Swords in this matchup. But the other person who's going to be really big on the boards, we talked about Jackie Young being big on the offensive end, but she's going to be big on the boards too, because like you said, she has a size advantage over the Storm backcourt. And you can't put the whole rebounding load on the front court. Your guards have to get in there and you know, help out on the glass. And Jackie Young, I think, is going to be a key to, you know, being able to, because Sugar Rogers, Danielle Robinson, they don't have that size. Jackie Young has that size advantage. So I think she's going to be key, you know, on both ends in terms of rebounding as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with all that. I think also the matchups are interesting here. And I don't like to get too caught up in matchups, especially with Seattle, just because they just run around so much on both ends, right? That they switch a lot. They have so much movement on their offense that it's hard to just get a matchup and stay in it. But I think do you think Seattle kind of just goes to, okay, we're going to attack Swords when she's out there? You know, not necessarily in isolation, but just trying to get those actions for Natasha Howard, let's say. I think that would be the matchup, right? Is Howard on Swords when Swords has minutes. If that happens, do you think Natasha Howard can give a lot offensively? She hasn't done that this season. Obviously, last year we saw that she could. She's shown glimpses of being that player that we saw last year in these playoffs, but she hasn't been that for long stretches yet. So I think if she's shooting and if she's getting to the rim and providing stuff on offense, I think it becomes very, very, very difficult to play Carolyn Swords. And then maybe Bill's hand is forced to go small.
Well, and that's where they missed Dearica Hamby, because Dearica Hamby has the size, you know, and the quickness to stay with someone like Natasha Howard, who's for her size has a great first step, you know, can get to the rim. You know, Carolyn Swords doesn't. So that's going to be, that's good.
We love Carolyn Swords, honestly, though.
Yes. Carolyn Swords is like the show's favorite player other than Brittany Sykes. She's like our second favorite player. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to involve her in a lot of ball screens, and Sue Bird, you know, is going to turn 40 in a couple of weeks and has lost a step on the defensive end, but she's still one of the better ball screen point guards in the league. So they're going to have to involve Carolyn Swords in ball screens, you know, make her defend. And you're right. I hope Bill Lambier's hand is forced, like you said, to go small, because I would love to see even just give us a 2 or 3 minute stretch with Angel at the 4. You know, Asia is going to be in for 40 minutes, you know, and then basically a 3-guard lineup. And let's just see what happens.
I agree. I hope he goes Angel at the 4. I don't know, though, because, like, there's also the idea that if Angel's at the 4, she's just more liable to get fouls, and you can't have her get fouled out, right? So in some aspects, like, Carolyn has 6 fouls to give. And I think, you know, if you in basketball, you can be really good, but also you can have 6 fouls, and that's important to a team. If you can have 6 fouls and soak those up from other players. So I think that I'm not really sold on going small the entire time, especially because that's not the team's identity at this point too. So I think at this point you can't really just say, okay, we're gonna put Angel at the 4 and go small without having a lot of experience in that, especially against such a good team. So I'm also interested in seeing if make Natasha Howard beat you, right? If Natasha Howard takes the most shots on the Seattle Storm, that's a good thing. It's not Jewel Lloyd, it's not Sue Bird. So I'd rather have that situation than having the opposite where I'm giving up a lot to Brianna Stewart or to Sue Bird or to Jewel Lloyd, who that's how their offense runs. That's who is designed to get the shots in this offense. So we got 30 minutes here, so we got plenty of time to keep talking. Let's get into what could end the series for both teams. And I'm saying if this thing happens, this team will win. So I think my first if then statement. This is very lawyer stuff, guys. This is what you do in law school. If Seattle is shooting the lights out, let's say what's their shooting percentage this year from 3. I'm gonna look this up as I talk.
I got their effective field goal percentage is 53%.
Okay, I want their 3-point. I know 3-point percentage is not that important, but I do want their 3-point percentage. So they're 39% 3-point shooting team. If they're shooting 42% on their 21 threes a game, is this series over? If they hit 9 threes a game, which I think they hit 10 in the first game against Minnesota. Is this series over? Yeah, they hit 13 in the first game against Minnesota, 10 in the second, 7 in the third. So their percentages went down, and they've actually have not had tremendous shooting performances in the past 5 games. But if they're hitting 10 threes a game, is this series over?
Yes.
Okay. That one's easy.
Very easy. Yes. They can't make 10 threes a game. They can't shoot 39%. Las Vegas has to hold them under their averages to win this game. The Aces need any advantage they can get with being slight underdogs anyway, and then you take De'Erica Hamby out of the equation. I really feel bad for them that they get the 1 seed in the year where they don't get home court because, playing in front of their home fans this year and having that extra edge would be huge for them. But they can't let Seattle you can't let the favorite get hot from 3.
Yeah.
Making shots is the biggest of the 4 factors we talk about. I don't know if our listeners know what 4 factors are, but it's the 4 biggest stats, and the biggest of those that determines wins is shot making. So you can't let the Storm get hot.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that was an easy question. The second if-then thing, and I alluded to it, so this may be a short answer. If Natasha Howard, let's say, I'll pull a number to see. If Natasha Howard, let's say, gets 15 points a game, is this series over?
Yes.
She's averaged 8 this season. She only averaged 11. So maybe 15 is too much. If she's averaging 13 points a game efficiently, is this series over?
I'm going to say no.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's debate this. I'm going to say no, but if she averages 13 points a game efficiently while getting, your averages from Jewel Lloyd and Brianna Stewart, then yes, this series is over. If Natasha Howard averaged 13 points efficiently and you can, somehow get shooting performances from Brianna Stewart that you did against the Lynx, I think you're still in it if you're the Aces.
I agree. I agree with that qualifier. I think if she ends up averaging 13 points, though, that means something is going wrong in the Vegas defense because they will – and they're not loading up to stop Natasha Howard, but that means either Seattle is seeing that mismatch and they have Carolyn Swords on the floor too much, or Natasha Howard is, beasting on Angel McCoughtry down low, which is possible. Angel is very strong. She's big enough to handle Natasha, but there is an aspect of that's not where Angel wants to play at this point in her career. And I think in either of those 2 scenarios, that means something's going wrong for Vegas, and that means that Seattle is gonna win. So let's say let's flip it over to the other side. Let's give some love to Vegas here. If Vegas can get 10 offensive rebounds a game, which is a lot. That's a lot. They averaged 8.1 in the regular season. If they can get 10 offensive rebounds and we'll say like 60, that's a 65% rate, do they win the series?
65% rate, as
60,
in
I'm not off
35%.
Thank you.
Offensive
35%.
65.
Yes.
Yes.
If
Okay.
Seattle has a 65% defensive rebounding rate and Vegas has a 35% offensive rebounding rate, which leads to at least 10 offensive rebounds a game, do the Aces win?
Yes, that's a good qualifier on the 10, offensive rebounds per game, because I was going to say no when you asked about 10 a game. That's a lot, but you can also get 10 offensive rebounds a game if you just miss everything. You come out ice cold. And that's not necessarily going to win them the series, but if they get 35% of their own misses throughout the series, yes.
Okay. Then we're in agreement for all of those. That was slightly a fun game. I'll have to revise it next time.
I got one for you, Gabe.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
All right. If the Aces can shoot at least, I don't know how many free throws they averaged in the regular season, but their free throw rate was 34%, which led the league. If the Aces can shoot, the Storm were second in the league, by the way, in terms of not fouling. They had the 11th lowest on defense. So this is battle of strengths. If the Aces can have a free throw rate higher than that, higher than their regular season average, above 34% on offense, draw that many fouls, get to the line, do they win?
I don't. Man, this is tough. Yeah, they probably do, because that will mean that first off, they're getting to the line, which is what their offense is predicated on. Second, that means that they will be getting Seattle into foul trouble, which would most likely be against their starters, because I'm guessing the people that are going to get fouled are either Angel McCoughtry or Brianna Stewart or Jewel Lloyd, maybe even Sue Bird. I'm not sure. So if they're getting fouled and they're getting to the free throw line and getting those players out and getting to Seattle's bench quicker, especially with no Sammy Whitcomb, yeah, I'm gonna say that they're gonna win in that scenario. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I think if you're getting to the line, and I was going to bring up this point about Jackie Young too. We keep coming back to her and how key she's going to be in this series in so many respects. I think this is another one. I think she's going to have to, draw some fouls too. We know Asia's going to get to the line. We think Angel's going to get to the line unless we see game 1 or game 2 Angel. But I think we're going to see aggressive playoff Angel. So we think she's going to get to the line. If they can have a third player, who's really putting pressure on the Storm to stay out of foul trouble. That's tough to defend no matter how deep you are. And you mentioned, Sammy Whitcomb, congratulations to her, by the way. She's back home. Her wife is having a baby. So shout out to her. Congratulations. That's awesome. Wanted to get that in the show. But, they're still the deeper team at this point. But that's one less bench option, obviously. And you want to get to the Storm bench. Even though their bench is good, you want to get to it.
Yeah, especially, with Epiphany Prince, she's been pretty good in these playoffs, but she does not have the defensive capabilities of Sammy Whitcomb. Even though I'd say Sammy's not a great defender, I think she's better than Epiphany Prince. And she's been there with this team and she really understands her role more so than Prince does, although Prince is doing a great job. And she's obviously a veteran who has made big plays throughout her career. But I just think getting to that matchup, especially for Jackie Young, is massive.
And I think too that the bigs of Seattle, Mercedes Russell and Ezzy Magbabor coming off the bench are not as tough to defend as Brianna Stewart. No one's as tough to defend as Brianna Stewart, or Natasha Howard. So when you talk about can Carolyn Swords defend, she's going to have an easier time defending if they can force the front court to get into that bench as well.
I agree. Our starting 5 is in for Vegas, and it's exactly who. No, it is Danielle Robinson, Kayla McBride, Asia Wilson, Angel McCoughtry, Carolyn Swords. I briefly got really concerned, like my heart skipped a beat if you saw my eyes go crazy. It's because that the graphic here, it puts Asia at the top. Obviously, I'm looking for the center or the power forward or whatever you want to call her at the bottom, and had Carolyn Swords there. I was like, oh my God, what happened to Asia? But it's fine. She's good. She's ready to go. And so that's their starting lineup. I'll try to find the Seattle starting lineup um, for the Storm here. I'm not sure they've tweeted. Oh, yeah, they have it up. It's exactly who you expect. It's Sue Bird, Joel Lloyd, Alicia Clark, Brianna Stewart, and Natasha Howard. So that is going to be a matchup there. Howard against Swords. And let's get in. I think we've kind of given away our cards here as to this question, but who's the key player for you for both these teams?
Well, yeah, I don't know if we've definitely given our cards away for the Aces. I have, at least. It's Jackie Young. They need the bench production. They need to take advantage of the size in the backcourt, like we said. And along the same lines, I think a player we haven't talked enough about, in these last 30 minutes is Alicia Clark. She's starting at the 3. She obviously they switch a lot. She's going to spend a lot of time on any of the guards. She's going to spend a lot of time on Angel. Probably spend some time on Jackie Young throughout this game. She can guard, basically 1 through 5. And she hits big shots. She makes the right play. So I think she's gonna be key for the Storm.
Yeah, I'm actually that was gonna be. I didn't want to go Jackie Young because I know we talked about Jackie Young a lot. And the thing with Jackie Young though that's interesting is Bill Laimbeer has not trusted her in the playoffs, and that's a big deal because he's a guy who goes on trust, who goes on gut, and he hasn't been able to have her out there in a way that he can trust her. So this is going to be a leap of faith if Jackie Young does become the key player in an Aces win. It's going to be a leap of faith from Bill Laimbeer, a guy who is not known for making leaps of faith or doing stuff that's outside of his box. Do you think she'll have a short leash? I'm guessing she will, right? I mean, this is Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah, well, yes, but also they're a little bit too thin for that leash to be too short at this point. I mean, they're gonna need some minutes from Jackie Young. I don't think you can play without Jackie Young seeing the court for 40 minutes. Just with the the rotation that you have right now, unless you want to put Lindsey Allen back in there for 20 minutes a game, because right now he doesn't trust her even less than he trusts Jackie Young. And she started 21 of 22 games, save for the COVID test games. So I mean, if that leash for Jackie Young gets too short, I mean, I think you're gonna have to see Lindsey Allen back in. I don't think you can sit both of them.
I don't know why. I mean, I understand his trepidation with the guards in the Connecticut series, but I think you're going to have to get some minutes from Lindsey Allen, period, even if Jackie Young's playing well, because you're going to need energy with this Seattle team. This isn't a team like you have it in Connecticut. Like both Connecticut and Vegas like to run, and they do that well, but they don't. Neither of those teams has the same movement on the half court offense. That takes up a lot of your energy when you're playing basketball. Like that's a huge part of your energy is getting sapped up on the half court offense. So I think if you're chasing around people, I think you're going to need Lindsey Allen to maybe give you some time, and hopefully she can. So that's it. So my key for Vegas, though, my key player for Vegas is actually going to be Angel McCoughtry, and it kind of goes off what you're saying with Alicia Clark, because I don't doubt that Angel's going to perform. That's not what I'm saying. But I want to see her take advantage of the Alicia Clark matchup, because I think when we think about it, obviously Alicia Clark's one of the premier, defensive players in this league. She finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and she's a great defender. However, this is basketball, and being taller helps. And Angel McCoughtry is taller than Alicia Clark. And she is also a player that can get her shots up and over Alicia Clark, and has been doing that in these finals. And I mean, in these playoffs, and who's going to love to do it in the finals. If we recall, we've talked about this a few times, that Angel McCoughtry is one of the best scorers in WNBA playoff history, including having the highest scoring finals game of all time. And also, she's never won a finals game. I wrote about this for my newsletter, that that Angel has never won a game. So I think come hell or high water, she's going to win a game. I think she's going to do that by getting her shots up and over Alicia Clark. And then perhaps she switches, Gary Kloppenberg will switch Clark and Howard to get a little bit more height on Angel, but then that leaves you open somewhere else. So I'm interested in seeing where that matchup goes, because if Angel's going off, I think that changes a lot of calculations for Seattle, and similarly, if she's playing well defensively, that changes calculations for Seattle.
Well, I think they need to take advantage of those switches. The Storm do switch a lot, and she can get those shots up over Alicia Clark. But also, Alicia Clark is going to be probably have a better time defending Angel than anyone else. I think, which isn't to say she's going to stop Angel, but I think Angel will go off even more once if they get those switches. And same thing with Asia. I think you need to if you're the Aces, you look 1 through 5 and you look at the matchups and you maybe win 1, maybe 2. The Storm have most of the individual one-on-one matchups if you turn this into 5 one-on-one battles. So you got to create mismatches. You got to take advantage of the fact that the Storm love to switch, and they love to trap ball screens, which leaves someone open as well. They love to blitz on the perimeter. You have to take advantage of that, find those open people, and find the mismatches. And pick on those, because that's going to be your best chance to score in the half court if you're Las Vegas.
I agree with that. It is interesting though, because like you're right. If you line this up 5 one-on-one matchups, the Storm have 3 of them, maybe 4 of them. And then if you line up the bench, it even gets bigger. So I think though that there is enough that the Aces can do to create those mismatches. And I think Angel will be a big part of it. Now, obviously, Asia's massive. Like we don't want to sit here and say like Asia's not key. We're assuming Asia's going to play at her MVP level, because that is what she has done. We're not worried about Asia performing on this stage or at this level. We're just kind of baking in her 20 points a game and 10 rebounds and a few blocks, right?
Yeah, we can Sharpie that in, because the key is a question mark, and Asia's not a question mark. The key is someone who we don't know what we're gonna get, but if, back to your lawyery if speak, if we get something from them, then their team wins the game. But Gabe, have you told us your key for the Storm yet?
No, I haven't. So my key for the Storm, so it's not Alicia Clark, but I've given it away. It's Natasha Howard. I think with Natasha Howard, she has to stay out of foul trouble first and foremost. She has to give great defense. Those two things are given. The great defense is a given with Howard. The foul trouble can be an issue. She does average the most personal fouls on the Storm. I think if you can get her into foul trouble, that'd be huge for Vegas to kind of open up the offense. If she's getting going on offense, though, like I mentioned, I think it might be curtains on this series because of how much she brings to the table. I think she can really provide a lot on both ends of the court. So if she's playing to all of her capabilities, I think that'll be pretty much the key. If she's going and she's playing really well, then I think Seattle's going to kind of not run away with it, but win in a convincing fashion.
Well, it's easy to forget too that she's a year removed from winning the Defensive Player of the Year, because she's what is she? Maybe the second or third best defender on her team right now. She may be the best, but we don't. I mean, you could talk about Breanna Stewart and Alicia Clark and Natasha Howard, and I have no idea how to rank those 3, 1, 2, 3 on defense. But I mean, this is a player who won the Defensive Player of the Year award just a year ago.
And God was finished like 3rd or 4th this year. She finished in the top 5.
So she gets kind of lost and overshadowed sometimes when we talk about the Storm defense because of just how many good defenders they have. But I mean, she's right there at the top of the league.
Yep. I agree, and I think all 4 of those players are massive. I mean, we did mention a ton of players on this team, so it's going to be a good series. And I think it's time now to make our predictions. Probably going to end a little early to let you guys get settled in for this. We have like 5 hours of basketball, basically.
Yeah, you got to have time to pop your popcorn and everything.
Yeah, I need time to make some say some prayers to many different gods for the second game in this doubleheader of WNBA and NBA Finals action. Actually, I do want to ask you about that before we get into our predictions here. What do you think of the back-to-back matchups? They're on different channels, so I think that's where where it kind of loses it for me. If it's on the same channel, that's fantastic. I think that really will draw people into the WNBA, give them a boost, and hell, it might get some of the WNBA fans interested in this final series, which both leagues would love. Well, the NBA more so than the WNBA, because WNBA ratings are up 68% this year. Boom. And the NBA ratings are slightly down. I think actually it would be great synergy for both the leagues to have it on the same network. It's not, but what do you think of the double header? Do you like it? Do you not? I don't think it's going to happen in the future, just for the record. But
I agree that, the same network would be better. I think it's a double header on different networks is better than not a double header. In my opinion, I love watching basketball, so I'm down to just sit back for 5 hours and, not move and be lazy, push up the recliner and watch basketball all night. But yeah, the same network, you're right. It would be huge for, ratings for both leagues. The NBA fans are going to tune in a little bit early. You watch the end of a WNBA game, which hopefully is close. Hopefully they get to see an exciting finish, and then vice versa. You're watching the WNBA, you're going to stick around and watch the NBA game. So the same. I mean, that would be really fun. I think on the same network. It is impressive. You mentioned though the WNBA.
They are. Sorry, I should say they are doing, I believe, games. We just had the graphic up. I just Shay had it up that there's going to be 2 games in this series where they are back-to-back doubleheaders on the same network, and that's going to be awesome. But wow. And sorry, I was looking outside. There's helicopters going by, and if you haven't been watching the news, the president's on the way to the hospital in a helicopter. So I live in DC, and I'm trying to see what's happening outside the window.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Gabe, and then I decided that would be awkward, so I just kept talking. And I had no idea what you're looking at, but thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. There's always like weird helicopters and planes and stuff flying around when you live in DC. But that, today we're on high alert. So let's get into our predictions. Let's pick who's gonna win this series on the Courtside podcast on the Her Hoop Stats podcast network, which I hope you're listening to. If being Christy Winter Scott, I picked Seattle in 4 games, but I'm going to revise that pick in a second because I'm going to make you make your prediction first.
Yeah, we know what happens when you make your predictions first. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, you know what? I've talked about it every time we make picks on this show that the Aces were my preseason pick. I'm not one to jump off of a bandwagon.
Good.
Until they force me. So I'm riding with them as long as I can. I'm going with the Aces in 5. I think they, like I said at the beginning of the show, they have momentum finally coming off of the last half of that Connecticut game. Game 5, in which they really did not look like themselves for a significant portion of that 5-game series. And I think they did for the last 20 or 30 minutes. Finally look like, the regular season Las Vegas Aces basketball that we're used to seeing. I think that carries over. I think the Storm are going to make it really tough. And I think we're going to get another exciting game 5, down to the wire, the same way we did in the Sun versus Aces series, but I'm going with the Aces.
Okay. And I'm also going with 5 games. That's one of my revisions here. So I'm going 5 games. I'm with you. I think, after naming our key players, figuring out the key stats, laying out the case for why both teams can win, I think both scenarios are equally as likely. So if I was putting out my odds, right, it'd be either team winning in 5 above all the other odds, which is awesome. That means we're going to get a great series. But I am picking Seattle. I just think this team has too much in Brianna Stewart, in Sue Bird, and Natasha. You look at how many players in this series have finals experience, and I did the math, and 10 players on the Seattle Storm have played in the WNBA finals for a total of 967 minutes, while only 2 players on the Las Vegas Aces have played in the WNBA finals.
D-Rob and Angel, right?
No, just Angel and Sugar Rogers.
That's right. Sugar Rogers. Yeah.
Sugar Rogers played 3 games and only played 7 minutes in those games. So most of those minutes for Vegas are from Angel McCoughtry. I think that experience, I don't think it's going to play like, it's not like the differentiating factor. But when you get down to Game 5 of the WNBA Finals, there's not much that can prepare you for that moment. And I think that Seattle being ready for that moment will just give them a little bitty slight edge at the end of Game 5, and I think they'll pull it out. But you know, when you look at to go against my point there, Angel has a ton of experience here. She's mad about that experience, and she's been mad since Game 3 of the last round, and she can just go off and win a game. And maybe that happens at the end. Maybe that game is Game 5, right? And if that happens, they're going to win the title. Also, Bill Laimbeer has played in 11 finals games, and he's going for his 4th WNBA title, which would time for the most all time.
He's won 2 NBA championships too, so he's got all sorts of rings on his fingers.
And you know, he's been excellent in these playoffs at relaying to his players what this moment means and what they need to do to win. And I'm sorry I don't have light. We started this when it was light outside, and now I don't. But I just think that Seattle, to me, has the better, deeper roster, mainly deeper. I think it's slightly better, but mainly deeper. And I think that championship medal will shine through, and I think they'll win a championship here. But you know, we're gonna have to come back and check and see where we are right after Game 1, and we'll see. I mean, we're not going live after Game 1 because obviously the Heat play, and that's just we're not going to be able to do that. And hopefully there's a post game show on ESPN. If you're not going to put it on the same network as the NBA game, at least give us a post game show. And I know there's going to actually be a really good halftime show with Swin Cash coming on with LaChina Robinson on ESPN. Is it on ESPN or on ESPN2? ESPN2. Yes. Yes, so it's at 7 p.m. ESPN2. So in about 10 minutes, you're going to be watching some WNBA Finals action on ESPN2. Don't go to ESPN because it's baseball, and baseball's stupid. Baseball's fine if you like baseball.
This is coming from a Marlins fan over here.
Yeah, go Marlins. I watched like 4 seconds of the Marlins game and was like, I don't know a single player on this team. And, you know, I think that's a testament to my no baseball rule because there's too many sports on this season. And I'm really proud to follow through. And secondly, it's a good point against the Cubs. They deserve to lose if they lost to that team.
Gabe knows who I'm a fan of.
Yes, I do. All right, guys. It's getting dark here in DC. We're going to get to the WNBA Finals in just about 10 minutes, so settle into your couch. And, you know, if you agree with our predictions, let us know. If you disagree with our predictions, even better, let us know. Hit us up on the Her Hoop Stats Twitter at Her Hoop Stats. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabe_Ibrahim. You can follow Calvin on Twitter at CWetzel31. You can follow
I love getting hate mail.
Love it. I love the hate. I love the hate mail. You know, don't try to be like constructive, but whatever. I don't care. And then you can follow Shay, WNBA with Shay, our wonderful producer, our MVP on this show, making everything happen. And we hope you guys enjoy everything and stay safe, stay smart, and wear a mask because obviously that's important. So have a great day and have an awesome